My name is Anthony Lopez. I am the Fusion Lifecycle representative, and this is
James Pavia, Senior Technical Consultant with KETIV.
Senior Technical Consultant, exclamation mark. Today we're going to be talking about BOM management specifically. We'll go through a quick overview explanation of the functionalities that we're going to be covering. From there, we'll do a demonstration within the tool itself that James is going to handle himself. And then we're going to take your questions and suggestions, which is a really important part of this webinar. So make sure you guys have that ready. And then we'll finish with a preview or an idea of what the next Fusion Lifecycle AVA is going to be like. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone that we do this webinar the last Tuesday of every single month at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. The purpose of these webinars is to make sure that you, the user of the tool, can use the tool to its fullest potential. And the webinar is always free, which is a really huge plus because we believe in sharing knowledge with you guys, and we're committed to sharing that value in this way. So make sure you tell your friends, make sure you tell your colleagues and get them signed up, as well as making sure that you guys give us your questions and suggestions because we want to make sure that the knowledge that we are sharing is knowledge that you really actually care about. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to James and we'll get started.
Okay. So the agenda for this morning's webinar is we're just going to take a look at the BOM tab in the modern UI. So if you're new to Fusion Lifecycle, this will give you a reasonably good idea of BOM management in Fusion Lifecycle. If you've been using Fusion Lifecycle with the classic UI, you'll notice that the features are pretty much the same, except that they've just been moved around the interface a little bit. So I think Autodesk have done a good job in providing a one-to-one functionality between the old and the new interfaces, with perhaps the exception of the expand and collapse buttons. So while functionally Rollup has not changed, we have to take a kind of like a different approach to getting the Rollup to work on the bill of materials if we're going to provide access to the average user. And lastly, we'll be looking at two visual ways of looking at the impact of change on the bill of materials. The first allows us to view the parent items that are using the current item. The second allows us to see the changes between different versions. So just a quick review of the bill of materials tab. We have at the top the ability to change the revision of the overall bill of materials. We've got the usual edit, add, and remove. With remove, something new in the modern UI is the fact that we can remove multiple items at the same time. We can still export the BOM. That'll be exporting to Excel, and we still have the views, the predefined, the hierarchical flat views, and viewing the BOMs at different dates, showing different states. You've also got the menu there where we'll compare revisions as well. So we're just going to take a quick look at the way that we can do the BOM roll-up, not how it's functionally we do it, but just what it visually looks like and how we can actually allow the user to manage the approved manufacturing lists and the costs of each and every item. So I'm just going to go through a quick scenario showing preferred cost, minimum cost, and maximum cost, based on what we see on the item details page of the item in question. The way used, well, that hasn't really changed much, and is as ever useful in giving us an overview or a view of the parent items of this particular open BOM that use a particular item revision at a given point in time. There's a whole lot of logic behind that, and we can go through that at some other time, the where use logic. But suffice to say that it will just give us a view of the parent items at that particular point in time. Now the BOM Compare, that hasn't changed much either. It will still allow us to compare different revisions of the bill of materials, and we'll take a quick look at that and show you the way that you can see the changes here. So now I'm just going to go into a quick demonstration. So here we have the Fusion Lifecycle modern UI. And I'm just going to go into this particular item at the moment. So switching over to the Bill of Materials tab, we have the functionality is basically the same if you're used to using the classic UI. We have the edit button here, but the issue with the edit button is that we don't really know we're in edit mode. Nothing really looks like it's changed. It's not obvious. So you have to click on things like we can change the hierarchy here. So this will change. So I can maybe change that, and we get a little blue triangle up in the left-hand corner there to say that something's changed. We can change the revision as well. So I can go into a working copy of that particular item, and I can change the quantity as well. So now I can save that. Now that item should appear down at the bottom here. I go into edit again and put that back. And as you can see here, when you select a previous revision of a particular item, it'll automatically pin the item. Now, pinning is all about making sure this particular item stays with this assembly, regardless of the changes that occur here. So you're actually pinning the item to this bill of materials. So we can go ahead and we can add particular items from this items workspace. So we can go down here and we can add another item, like let's pick that one and add those to, not the PCBA, that's another assembly, battery connector. So then they appear down here at the bottom, and we can save that. Now the idea behind the remove is that we can now remove one or multiple items just by selecting them. So I could remove all those items. Let me just remove the ones that I just added to make the bill of materials consistent again, and remove those, and we save them, and they're gone. Now this these three dots here are the export to Excel, so we can export the whole bill of materials to Excel. These icons are very much the same as they were in the classic. The stamp means that they're part of a change order, an ongoing change order. We can see that in, I think, one of these. Where we can see that this assembly is going through a change order at this moment in time. We can also see attachments on the item, so we can view those attachments here. Our views are very much the same as well. We can go into a default view. We can see different views of the bill of materials. Unfortunately, it's not like we can view E-BOMs, S-BOMs, and M-BOMs. It's the same bill of materials, but just with different columns to allow us to view different information. And this kind of like leads us into the cost roll-up part of the session that I wanted to talk about in particular, because cost roll-up allows us to see the actual cost of each individual item and roll it up. Not on that one. Let's go to that one. Now the issue, let's make that bigger. The issue before, well, it wasn't actually an issue. We had to use the sourcing tab to actually provide that kind of information from the vendor, the cost of a particular component, etc. So here, I've named it sourcing because we're actually looking at the sourcing tab, which unfortunately is not visible in the modern UI. And you would have to view that in the classic. So if you were going to use cost rollup, or you're already using cost rollup, it will still work in the modern UI, but you'd have to manage it from the classic UI. Much the same way that when you go into administration mode, it goes into classic mode. So no ill effects here. It'll still roll up the cost, but you just have to manage them in a different way. Now, there's also the cost rollup max, min, and preferred, which use a different method, kind of like emulates the sourcing tab. So if I go into preferred, what'll happen here is it'll give me the rollup. Not on that one. I'm going to switch into a different one here to give you a good example where it's all configured. So here I have preferred. Now, I've selected preferred, but you can only see that I only have preferred configured on a certain number of items. So let's have a look and see how that's configured. So if I open up that in a new tab, although I'm missing the sourcing tab, I have the AML list here. So now I have my suppliers, Arrow, Yageo, and I have my preferred cost here. Now that's where the bill of material is rolling up on preferred. So there's only one preferred here. And this is what's being rolled up here, and on this one, and on this one. Now if I go into max cost, it'll give me a different cost, basically the maximum cost on all those items. If you have multiple items here, it'll work out the maximum cost for you and show that on the bill of materials. Likewise, if you click on the minimum, it'll show you the minimum cost based on what you see in the AML list. Now this list is configured in a way where it's connecting up the manufacturer's part number list and the suppliers. But also in BOM Rollup, we can also roll up these fields as well. So we can test for ROHS and reach and conflict materials. We can get those kind of rollups in this kind of view as well. Now this gives us a hierarchical view normally of the bill of materials. But we can also view the bill of materials as a flat structure, just like that if necessary. Now I did mention that the expand and collapse buttons were missing from this particular interface. If you remember, if you've had any experience with Classic, you could click on expand and it would expand all of these sub-assemblies out, which we can't actually do. So the closest we can get is to actually convert it to a flat bill of materials. Now moving along over here to the view settings. Here we can see the bill of materials. We can view it in different ways at different points in time. So we can see the bill of materials as of today, or we can go back in time and see what it was like, the release version, see what it was like in February. So possibly nothing much has changed here at all. So we won't see anything, but that's basically the functionality here, or we can see the working revisions. And so on. So we can see pending changes, anything's going through some sort of change process. And we did notice that this one was actually going through some sort of change process, although it doesn't show up here. Let's have a look in the default view. It does have a change there. There's another change going on down here with this particular sub-assembly. This particular item within the sub-assembly is going through a change. So let's look at the BOM Compare. This is part of the settings configuration. So click that on, and now we can see that we can do a compare between different revisions of this whole bill of materials. So if we go from working and see what's happened in between working and version B on the released items. So we can see that basically this whole assembly has just gone from working to through production to version B of the whole assembly. Nothing else has really changed here. Okay, so let's have a look at if there's anything. Probably nothing much has happened on the between the working and the A and B. No, I think what's happened here is that we just went from working to version A, probably part of an import. But you get the idea. You'll see the changes being redlined between the different versions. So another way you can see the impact of change is the way used. This will give us the parent assemblies, or the parent assembly where the item is actually being used. Here we can see that it's being used here as well in this part of the assembly. So if we look at the bill of materials here, we should see that same item in there. So that way we can follow the change process and follow the impact of making changes to particular items. Where is it going to impact the product? So I mean, I think that's about it on the bill of materials. There's not an awful lot.
I actually had a quick question.
Yeah.
Earlier in the demonstration, you started out by showing that you could make changes to a BOM, and you struck 2 items from one of the BOMs. Does that automatically update the revision, or is that something that you need to do separately?
Well, I wasn't taking into consideration the whole change process. Normally, to do that sort of thing, you go through some sort of change process. So I wasn't taking any notice of that process.
Got it.
So normally you would go through the change process, which we'll be talking about in the next session.
Got it. Okay. So that it doesn't really do anything as far as revision changes then?
No, I'm using kind of like a override admin access on this. I'm overriding revision locks and workflow locks.
So normally, if you wanted to go through changing a BOM, you would have to go through the change process in order to change a BOM.
Yes.
Got it. Okay, that's good to know. And then afterwards, once that gets approved, then you can go back and look at revisions and see what was changed.
Yes.
And whatnot.
We could also take a quick look at the AML functionality that I was talking about, how to get the BOM rollup.
Mm.
Now, although we've tried to make it relatively simple, it still requires a little bit of admin to set this up. So opening up that one, we can see that it has an AML list. So this sort of thing is out of the box, so you'll be able to connect and and use this kind of functionality. But actually, to get the roll-up, we would need to have the admin configure the roll-up to point to these fields and do the magic with a little bit of JavaScript as well. But we can maybe have a session whereby in a couple of months go through an admin session where we can set this sort of thing up. Basically, we're just looking at it from a user's point of view to make it simple. And as we're missing the sourcing tab, we need to find some other way of providing this kind of cost roll-up functionality to the average user.
Great. Well, thanks so much, guys, for attending this webinar on BOM management. Just a quick reminder again to please give us your questions and your suggestions. We want to be able to make this as interactive as possible for you guys, so it's a little bit more entertaining, but also so we can make sure that we're giving you guys the content that you really care about, so that you guys can continue to find this valuable, keep coming back, and we can start to really build an awesome relationship with you guys. Thank you so much, James, for bringing your expertise. Thank you for everyone at KETIV behind the scenes that is making this happen, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you, guys.